sustain this lead or even polling.
And let's bring into this conversation the chairman of the Democratic Governors Association, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz. Governor, thank you for being with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning.
These polls note, and we should, of course, apply every caveat, we're still many months for the election, and every poll suggests a tight race. Yeah. But this one shows a little momentum, perhaps, for President Biden. His challenger, though, Donald Trump, says that he thinks that your state is in play, that he came close in the past, even as it went blue every time. What do you think?
Yeah, well, he said he won it before, so that's what Donald Trump says.
Discount that.
I remind folks that Joe Biden came closer to winning Texas than Donald Trump did in Minnesota. But with that being said, look, it is going to be close. Folks are still trying to make up their mind. I think where Donald Trump's talking about winning, we're actually preparing to win. The Biden administration's investing heavily. We've got field offices on the ground. The Democratic Farmer Labor Party in Minnesota is well organized, and I'm just going to note we're the only state since 1972 that's voted for a Democratic candidate every single year. That will happen again this year, but it won't happen without the hard work. So I'm really pleased to see the Biden folks taking it seriously, and we know the upper Midwest, it's us, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania are a big piece of it. We'll do our job, get it done. But look, when Joe Biden comes out to Minnesota, he brings jobs and decency. Donald Trump's on his grievance tour, and he leaves us with bills for his security. So those things are starting to take hold.
So let's talk about some. You just went through the political blocking and tackling here, which advantage to the president. But what are some of the issues that right now matter most to constituents in your state? You know, whether that is things like abortion rights, the defense of democracy, but also stubbornly high inflation.
Yeah. Well, and I also think we saw last week the bump stock ban, the Supreme Court, those decisions do matter, like public safety matters to folks. The idea that's absurd that even the NRA thought banning those things. But the inflationary pieces, you know, we're starting to see consumer confidence come up a little bit. I think the president needs to stay right in that space where they're coming out. We are seeing more construction jobs in Minnesota than we've ever seen. We're seeing reshoring of chip manufacturing back to Bloomington, Minnesota. We saw the investments that we've never seen in decades starting to come in high-tech manufacturing. Those things are starting to increase people's psychology about the economy, and I think that's a big piece of it. They just need to keep pounding that, and that's where I think governors have a big role. Look, we have to deal with whether it's wildfires in New Mexico or making sure that those job numbers stay up. We're the ones that are benefiting from the Biden-Harris administration, meaning we have the tools finally. I keep hearing that ridiculous comparison, you know, were you better off 4 years ago? No, we were stacking people in U-Hauls who were dying because of Donald Trump's incompetency. I think talking about what a competent partner looks like in the federal government makes a difference.
Governor Walz, you recently had a viral moment where you were feeding kids free breakfast. Yeah. Will you talk about the federal expansion there when it comes to free food for hungry children?
Well, we know that it makes a difference. I'm a, two-decade school teacher. We know that full bellies make better learners. But look, you're seeing the contrast in this when you get a Democratic governor versus a Republican governor. Look, we don't have the 10 Commandments posted in our classrooms, but we have free breakfast and lunch. Those are policies that the Biden-Harris administration are talking about going nationally. It makes a huge difference. We used what we learned during the pandemics on the child tax credit. Minnesota is going to reduce childhood poverty by 1/3. We already have one of the lowest numbers. Those are things that make a real difference in people's lives. Money back in the pockets of the middle class, policies that are making a difference in our schools. That's a big contrast. What do you hear from the Trump administration other than grievance, retribution? Look, esteemed epidemiologist Donald Trump did nothing during COVID. Now he's going to solve the Middle East crisis and climate change,
right,
on the first day, immigration. Not going to happen.
Yeah, and members of Congress spending time and money to show up at his criminal trial. It's all just so productive, isn't it? Minnesota's Democratic Governor Tim Walz, thank you very much for coming on the show this morning. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So there is